Hello there. So over the last few years I've had quite a few questions from work colleagues, friends, relatives, you guys in the comments and videos, messages on Instagram, comments on Instagram and Facebook about my photography, about what I do, about the YouTube and things like that. I've compiled a list of 30 of those questions which I've decided it's about time I actually made a video. Now, one of the biggest burning questions that I can foresee, because at this point the video hasn't gone out yet, but the video I did at Pendle Hill, the failed camp and the people trying the doors and stuff, I can foresee one of the big questions will be, are you going to do a car camp again? And the answer is yes. Absolutely. 100%. I am not deterred by a bunch of idiots. But there are much better, much more pressing questions that have been asked already, and I think it's about time I answered them. So, let's go for a walk. That's a big question to start this off with, isn't it? Now, this was asked to me by a friend after I'd just done my first car camp this year, but it has been asked to me before when I've been on photography trips. And it is a big question because I do a lot of photography trips, and obviously I'm not doing photography all the time on those trips. So I'd like to expand the question a bit to what do I do when I'm not doing photography on a photography trip. Now, it could be camping, it could be hotels, cottages, caravans, whatever. Because I'm obviously not doing photography 24/7. It wouldn't even be possible to do that. There wouldn't be that much to photograph in one location, but let's break it down a bit. It really all does depend on the situation. It depends where I am, it depends on weather, it depends on the nature of the trip I'm taking. But in general, when I'm not recording one of these videos or taking photos, I will probably use the time to explore the area, maybe take the odd shots, get to know the area, do a bit of research on the area, that sort of thing, have a wander around. I'll certainly use the time to just chill out and do nothing and relax. I may decide to watch some YouTube videos or catch up on some movies or something like that on Netflix or series or something. But mostly, one of the biggest things I do, depending if I'm on a trip with somebody or on my own, I will most likely edit the photos and videos. I'll certainly edit the photos. I might start trimming the clips down to something a bit more reasonable, especially the clips where I'm walking and filming myself walking, having to walk back to get the camera, things like that. That's got a lot of content on there that's not needed, so I might trim that down and make it a more manageable file. So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing on a photography trip, either editing videos, watching films, watching YouTube, exploring, or just generally chilling out. Well, I grew up as a child. Well, I say I grew up. I'm still doing that, and I'm nearly 50. But I grew up in North Wales, a very beautiful part of the country. I was brought up by my disabled grandmother, who couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything without a wheelchair, and I used to enjoy walking up the mountain behind me, behind where I lived. One day my gran gave me a camera, asked me to take some photos so she could see what was up there, what it looked like, and I had absolutely no interest in doing that. I was a kid, I just wanted to play and enjoy myself. But I did it anyway. Took the photos, came back. And about a week later, when they were printed on the little pieces of card, because it was film photography back then, I was absolutely fascinated seeing the scenes that we're used to looking at actually printed on a piece of paper. I mean, I'd seen photographs before, but I'd seen pictures in magazines and stuff like that, but something that actually meant something to me, that was different. And that's where my interest in photography in general started. I specifically got into landscape photography because that's all I had to work with, either that or my dog. So I'd photograph the mountains surrounding my house to start with, and eventually I moved on to waterfalls in the area, and the beach and sunsets, sunrises, all that kind of thing. It was only later in life that I actually got into photographing people and doing weddings, that sort of thing as well. But yeah, that's how my interest in landscape photography started. Well, my first camera was a cheap 110 film camera from Boots. It was a flat 35mm lens. It was nothing compared to today's standards of cameras, but that was my first camera. It was cheap and easy to buy. It was easy to buy the film, it was easy to use, and that was basically my first camera. If I remember, I'll put a photograph of it up. Do I still have it? No. I upgraded cameras very quickly after that, and that one very quickly fell into disuse and disappeared into time. Now, eventually I got a TLR camera, which was a joy to use. I really enjoyed using that. I do wish I still had that, but it got dropped and broken. It took me a long time to get into digital. About 2006 to 2008, when I first got into a digital camera, that's when they were good enough, in my opinion, to actually be used for professional use. I was using it for wedding photography at the time, so. But I had to catch up with the market, and yeah. But the first ever camera, a little 110 film, a little 110 film camera from Boots. The thing is, I've never actually felt that, and I don't think anybody does, especially in creative arts. I don't think anybody doing any form of art ever thinks they've got really good at it, not unless they're somewhat arrogant. Because the fact of the matter is, photography, like any art form, improves every time you do it, and you're always getting better, you're always doing it better, you're always doing something different, and you're always learning. So I've never really felt like I've actually got good at photography. But I do feel like I'm improving all the time, and I feel that the first major improvement I made was when I took a shot of Ellendon Castle in Scotland at sunset, and it got more than 10,000 likes, views, and was actually requested as a print by them. And that's when I first felt that I was improving as a photographer. really plan the shoot as such, but I will plan the location I want to go to and have a rough idea in mind of what I want to get. Now, how I plan that, it's a combination of things these days. It's books by other photographers, other artists. It's Google Maps, OS Maps, seeing photographs on Instagram or Facebook that have inspired me to go out and go and get a similar image of my own. But actually planning the shoot itself, I don't really plan that because there's no way to plan that. When you get to a location, you might have sun, you might have rain, you might have completely different circumstances to the image you've seen or that you got in your mind, and planning it really doesn't do any good. You need to go with an idea of what you want to do and what you want to achieve, but there's no way to actually plan the shoot in such a way that you could call it planning it. The only thing you can really plan is where you want to go and have a rough idea what you want to get from that location. First thing I do when I arrive at a location, now I'm not talking about the location like this as a wide vista, I'm talking about the location where I want to take the photograph from. I'll check compositions. I might use my phone, I might use my camera. I'll check the compositions to see what's best. I'll look for foreground interest, I'll look for what's in the distance, I'll look at the light and how the light's changing. That's the process. Get the tripod set up, get the camera on it, find the shot I want, find the foreground interest I want, find the leading lines in the image, decide on focal length, decide on my settings, and I'll already have a rough idea based on the conditions what I want to achieve from the shot there. But beyond that, that's really my only process, and it really does come down as simple as using your eyes and looking at what you've got to work with. Now there is a question later that covers what I'm about to say, but I'm not really a fair weather photographer. When I get to a location, I'll use whatever conditions I've got there. I may not decide to go out in bad weather, but if I've gone out and it is bad weather, I'll make the best of that. And that's how you plan the shoot when you get there. That's your process for arriving on location. So leading on from the previous question, sometimes I do scout locations in advance, especially locations that are more seasonal, something that requires maybe, like now we've got blossom trees, although there isn't much blossom on them at the moment. You've got daffodils, you've got bluebells, you've got heather. If the location has an abundance of those things, I will scout the location out to try and decide what to make of that location later. I will sometimes go to a location and decide that it's more ideal for a different time of year. So yes, I do scout locations out, and I do put a lot of thought into the locations sometimes and a lot of planning into them. No. If you're a beginner in photography, you don't need expensive gear. You need functional gear. Now, you do need to plan for the longer term. You do need to plan what system you want to get into, things like that. I don't see the point in a beginner buying a 10 grand Hasselblad X2D with all the lenses or anything like that. I feel, as a beginner, the first things you need, if you're getting into landscape photography specifically, you need a tripod, a CPL polarizing filter, some ND filters maybe, and they don't have to be expensive ones. You can get some pretty good, like K&F Concept. You can get some pretty good cheap ones like those. Camera body, that is a rough topic. I personally prefer shooting on full frame, but by no means do you need to start with a full frame camera. You can start with an APS-C camera in whatever brand you're going to go for. Where I would say to spend the money, lenses. Once you choose a brand, that camera body is not going to be with you forever. It's going to change. Technology is going to change and you are going to upgrade. But lenses, they're timeless to a degree. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy all f2.8 lenses that cost £1,000, £2,000 each. You can get perfectly good and sustainable f4 lenses. Really all depends on what system you're going for, so I can't make any specific recommendations for this segment. But good quality lenses, good quality glass is your most important investment. Camera bodies can come later, expensive tripods can come later. You just need a tripod that stabilises the camera enough. A camera bag. You are going to need a camera bag, but it doesn't have to be a £600 Gitzo or Shimoda bag. It could just be a K&F concept one, just something to carry the camera in. No, you don't need to spend money on expensive gear, you just need good quality gear and good quality lenses. They're your priority. Stick within your budget, invest money in experiences and trips. That's where your value is going to come. Okay, that's a relatively difficult one for me to answer. I personally prefer zooms, although I do have a wide angle prime lens. Excuse the wind. In the past, prime lenses were considered more sharp because they had less glass in them, and they were just made wider apertures. They were made to be better, they were made to be lighter, they were made to be easy to carry, they were made to be fundamentally easier to transport around. But a lot of zoom lenses these days are equal or better optics. Prime lenses are cheap and lightweight, like I say, but you can get good zoom lenses that are cheap and lightweight too. That doesn't really make a difference. What makes a difference is your style and what you think will suit you best. A zoom lens gives you convenience. A prime lens, you're kind of tied to that focal length. If you don't mind being tied to that focal length and moving your composition around more, go for a prime lens. Zoom lenses are more convenient because you can zoom into a scene or change your composition easily. A prime lens will make you think more about what you're shooting, but get the zoom lens and just set it to the one focal length and stick with that focal length. There really isn't much difference these days. Personally, I use a Lightroom for most of my editing. There's just a few times where I'll either have to go into Photoshop or Affinity Photo for things like focus stacking or any more detailed image editing than Lightroom can handle. Now, Lightroom these days is actually really good at handling most situations for my style of photography, but for me personally it has to be Lightroom. And the medium which I do my editing on, I'm more and more using the iPad for editing than I am the computer, simply because of the convenience of the tablet being easy to carry, manoeuvre around and easy to use. The touchscreen interface when editing a photo, even on Lightroom, is fantastic. It's like you're drawing onto the photo, it's like you're touching the photo, not in an inappropriate manner. But yeah, pretty much the best editing software you can get out there is going to be anything made by Adobe. Now I do use LumaFusion for editing my videos, but these questions are more about photography, so yeah. Well, if you're starting out in photography, you're going to try all kinds of different editing, including the editing that comes in devices these days, like the iPhone or the Android system. You're soon going to find the limitations of those, and you are eventually going to come across Lightroom. You're going to use Lightroom, and to be quite honest, you're going to find it hard to leave Lightroom. Even with the subscription, it's still one of the best. That's a good question. It actually came from a work colleague about a year or so ago. They wanted to know how long my process actually took to edit a photograph. It's also a complicated question. Some photographs, you get it so right on the day that you don't really need to do much work to it at all. There may be a few tweaks to exposure, maybe a few tweaks to sharpness, things like that, but you can probably do it in about 2 or 3 minutes. Some photos can take longer. There may be details in them that you want to remove, like for example, a little bit of white in the scene there. It's a bit of tree bark. I might not want that in the scene. I might decide to go through and remove little bits like that. It really all depends on what the photograph's going to be used for. But the longest it's ever taken me to edit a photo has been about 20 to 30 minutes, up to an hour. But that took a lot of work. It had a lot that needed doing to it. I haven't had one since. In general, an average time about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes on average. That is down to my style of photography. I am more of a documentary style of photographer than an artistic style of photographer, which means I'm getting what I need on the scene. The settings in the camera are actually providing what I need to get the shot how I want it, and that's leaving me with limited editing to do later on. Some people spend days on one photograph. The truly artistic photographers will spend days on one photograph. But no, not me. I'm comfortable in my zone of being a documentary style of photographer, and I'm comfortable with how long it takes me to create my photos. I shoot my photos with intent, which means I actually shoot them knowing what I'm going to do with the editing later, which makes it a lot easier when it comes to editing. That's a hard question. I don't really have a favourite place, because every time I go somewhere new, that has the potential to become a new favourite. But the one place that I'd always return to if things were really down and I were really just needed to get away, take photos and be somewhere where I'm really happy, I'd probably pick Glencoe. There's anywhere around Glen Etive or Glencoe, it's absolutely stunning. It's so peaceful, beautiful. There's so much there. If I ever really lost my interest in photography, I think this question should be more, if I ever really lost interest in photography, where would my place to be to go? And that would probably be Glencoe, or maybe the Isle of Skye. They'd be the places that would rekindle that flame. So yeah, I guess they could be my favourite places, but in general I don't consider myself to have a favourite place. Just places that I'd go to rebuild my interest. That's easy. Canadian Rockies or Iceland. Both fairly expensive to get to, both hard to get to, but they are massively on the bucket list. Canadian Rockies, I don't know if I could ever spend enough time there. Iceland, I think that's a place that you'd have to go to several times a year to actually capture everything, and even then I still don't think you'd get everything. So yeah, they're the top of my bucket list, followed very closely by the Dolomites, and obviously I could go on and list all the other places, but Canadian Rockies, then Iceland, then the Dolomites. I don't really have a preference, but most of my photography does seem to be done when I travel a distance. Mostly, I think, because I have the same mindset as most people, you don't appreciate what's on your actual doorstep. I do live in a very beautiful part of the UK. I live in Lancashire. There's a lot of mountains, a lot of scenery around here, a lot of nice walks. But because I can see them anytime, that kind of detracts from my enjoyment of them, comparative to the further away I go, the more I enjoy it, because I can't get back there as easily. And the further it is, the less easy it is to get back to, the more I'm going to make the most of it and the more I'm going to enjoy it. I can't say I've ever really had any majorly bad weather on trips, but I'm British. I live in a very unpredictable climate. One minute it can be sunny, the next minute it can be throwing it down with rain, and you just get on with it. There is no way to predict the weather sometimes. I mean, there's parts of the Lake District where everywhere else is sunny, and that's absolutely siling it down with rain. That's why it's called the Lake District. I think because I've grown up in England and Wales, and I'm UK born and bred, and you just keep calm, carry on and get on with it. You can't change the weather. Why let it ruin your life? That depends. It depends what's caused that creative rut. I mean, I've had them. I've had periods where I just haven't wanted to go out and photograph, and I've just gone and got images just for the sake of getting a video out or something like that. There's been times when I've just lost faith in my photography. As I mentioned in one of the other questions, I'd probably go to Glencoe if I really lost any interest. But for the most part, I think you just have to address what's actually causing that creative block. And why not just change it up a bit? Sometimes a change is as good as a rest. Maybe photograph something different, get in contact with a model and do some model photography. Take a dog out and photograph a dog, or photograph something different. If you're in general a landscape photographer, sometimes changing what you photograph can re-inspire you. I think that's probably the easiest answer to that question. Photograph something different. Change your perspective. That's quite a difficult question to answer, because I mean, everybody's going to have a different idea of what that is. But for me personally, I'd say the best way you can improve as a beginner, is actually going out and taking photos. Learn how to use your camera, learn how to use the settings, learn how those settings interact with the scene that you're actually shooting. That's obviously the best way to learn as a beginner to actually do. You learn by doing, and photography is very much a hands-on, learn by doing kind of experience. Find somebody credible to help you, to do workshops with you, or to teach you. Somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. Don't just go to Uncle Jeff who's got a great camera, who thinks leaving it on automatic all the time is a great photo. It's not. But get out there and shoot. Use the camera. The more you use it, the better you get at using it. But don't stick with doing the same thing. Experiment with other settings like manual and aperture priority and shutter priority. Learn what the camera can do. Make the most of what's around you. Photograph different things. Even if you take 100 photographs of a sunflower, you don't have to keep them, but you can see how the camera interacts with them with different settings, different shutter speeds, different apertures. Learn by doing. That is a loaded question. The simple answer is anything that can hold your eye, not something that catches your eye, but something that can hold your eye. Now it might be the way the lines lead into the image, it might be the texture of the moss, it might be the light, it could be anything. Don't listen to photographers that say you need good light. You just need light. It's good use of the light that counts. But a photograph that can actually hold your attention, in my opinion, that's what makes a good landscape photo. This was asked to me by a friend fairly recently. How long does it actually take me to take, film and edit a video? Now, the truth of the matter is that can vary, just like photos, it can vary. But take a 10-minute video for example. Once I actually get onto location, cut all the travel time and all that out. Walking to the location and taking the photos of the location, although that does to a degree depend on the location, on average I'll take a 10 maybe 15 second clip for each clip I use. It can take anything up to an hour to actually film a video. It can take anything up to 5 hours to film a video, depending on the location, depending on the circumstances, depending on what you're doing. That's probably quite obvious, and it's probably not helpful. So let's move on to the actual editing of a video. A 10-minute video, that'll probably take me about 1 to 2 hours to edit, depending how well I've actually shot it. If I've shot it badly, it's going to take a lot more work. If I've shot it the way I shoot my videos, generally I shoot them in sequence that I'm actually going to show it. I have kind of a process for actually filming the videos. Once I've actually got them into the computer or the iPad, it can generally take me about an hour to 2 hours to actually edit a full video, to put all the detail into it that needs to go into it. If I need to do colour grading and any major edits to the video, it can take a little longer. If I need to stabilise the footage, that can take a little longer. But to give a mean average per video, a 10-minute video may take about between 2 and 4 hours, depending on the work that needs doing to it. Nowadays I don't really find it that hard, but when I first started running the YouTube channel, it was dealing with negativity, like thumbs downs, things like that, bad comments, lack of growth. All those things, they have a negative impact on you. They make you think, well, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Should I bother? Should I keep going? Now, This channel's my second YouTube channel. The first one got deleted because somebody hacked the email, but that it was attached to. But this channel, at this point, I have been doing it since 2017. That's when I put my first video out ever, and I just don't really think about it anymore. I don't pay any attention to the thumbs up and thumbs down. So it's a voting system. It doesn't do anything. It's still interaction. It doesn't really bother me. It's getting past that negativity that's hard. It's you have to start just enjoying what you do, ignore any negativity, and just make the content that you enjoy and that you want. And the hardest part now is finding new ideas, finding new locations to go to and new ideas to actually work with, and constantly improving the channel. I'd say that's probably the hardest part now. But when you first start, if you get a lot of negativity and a lot of criticism, that can be quite trying on you. You do have to have a strong personality and will to do a YouTube channel and not care what anybody says. When it's something you actually care about, like photography, art or creativity, something that you've actually put some work into, that can be difficult. But if you are doing a YouTube channel, if you are starting out, just keep going with it. Screw what anybody says or thinks. The irony being that this video is technically scripted because I'm actually reading the questions off my iPhone. I don't really script my videos. There's no way for me to script the videos. I don't think any landscape photographer can actually script the videos. They can script segments in a video. Like Photo Trip, for example, he does a lot of comedy in his, so that obviously is scripted. But me, it's largely freestyle. I get to the location and I'm actually talking to you about what I'm seeing and what I'm doing, or what I'm planning at the time. So there's no actual script involved. Sometimes I will script a video, like this one, for example. It's basically written down roughly what I've got to say in shorthand. But for the most part, no, it's freestyle. The camera I'm currently using is the Canon V10 vlogging camera, and I'm just using the internal microphone with a kind of a dead cat put on it. I'm considering upgrading that to the ZV-2 eventually, the Sony ZV-2. But for now, this camera's provided me everything I need. I don't want to carry loads of microphones. I don't want to be doing loads of different things with audio. The audio on this is perfectly adequate for my needs. Even with wind noise like we've got today, you can still hear me quite adequately. And I think that's what's important. As long as the audio's good in a video and as long as the visual's good, you don't need expensive gear. This camera costs around £200 to £250 depending where you buy it from. Like I say, I'm thinking of getting the Sony ZV-2. I think that's what it is. That's about £500, and it's not something I'm going to be getting anytime soon, but eventually that is on the cards. At this moment in time I use the DJI Mini 3 drone. It's an excellent drone, gets great footage. I've had a lot of disasters with drones, but I'm hoping to look after this one better. What else? Sometimes I'll use my Sony A7R III to capture a clip, simply because the for cinematics, background blur, that sort of thing. And I'm not beyond using my iPhone to get a video, but my main primary vlogging camera is the Canon V10. For a start, don't spend money on expensive gear. Use your phone. Use your phone to film with. Get a cheap lavalier mic that plugs into it and use your phone. Don't spend a fortune on gear. Get out there, film things and enjoy it. Also, it depends what photography you're going to film. If you want to get into landscape photography, it is a saturated market. I would say niche it to something else and use the landscape photography as an extra. When I started landscape photography, it wasn't quite as popular as it is now, but it was still a saturated market. If I knew then what I know now, I would have started out with car camping videos and had the photography as a side on the channel. That's what I'd recommend. Maybe do wild camping, maybe do hiking or something like that, and have the landscape photography as a side hustle on the channel, as something that goes with that. Niche it to something else. If you're going to make it about photography, try and find something unique that isn't saturated on YouTube. And don't sweat the small stuff. Don't let negative comments and likes and dislikes and stuff like that bother you. The thumbs up and thumbs down system, it's a rating system. It's not an impact on you or your content. It's just that somebody doesn't like it, they put a thumbs down on it so they don't get it recommended again. It doesn't matter. Don't let that bother you. And if you want advice from somebody, get it from somebody credible. Get it from somebody who's actually going to give you good advice rather than somebody who's competing with you. I've tried to get advice from big YouTubers and it's been hit and miss at best. I think you have to kind of plough your own way when you're in a big market. If you're in a smaller field, you'll probably get more help from people. Just keep going with it. In general, I prefer handheld. Mostly owing to the fact that that's how I started. When I first started taking photographs, I spent about 15 years holding the camera. It never even occurred to me to get a tripod. I mean, I was a child. It was only when I was about 25, 26 that I actually finally got a tripod for the first time. And even then I rarely used it. That's when I started getting more interested in longer exposures on like waterfalls and coastal photography. And that's when I realised you needed a tripod for those things, especially back in those days. There are some modern cameras that you could probably take a half-second exposure with a hold in it. Probably wouldn't risk it. It's very much a case of the right tool for the right job. 90% of what I actually photograph I could handheld. There's only about 5, maybe 10% of what I photograph that would absolutely need a tripod. That is contrary to what you see on the channel, but when I'm photographing for myself, I can take a photograph, walk off and carry on. When I'm photographing for you guys on the channel, I need to lock in an exposure so I can talk about it, so I can think about it, so I can discuss it, so I can show you it. So the tripod is more vital for this, for YouTube. It's more vital so I show you what I'm doing. Imagine if I was walking around hand-holding a photograph, hand-holding a whole location and trying to vlog it as well. I'd still need a tripod to put the vlogging camera on. But if I'm just walking around taking photos that are not for a video, I'll probably just be holding the camera. I probably won't have my tripod with me. So handheld is probably my go-to outside of doing the YouTube videos. To be quite honest, I like both. It depends on the coastline. In general, you'll probably find me choosing to go to a mountain rather than a coastline though. So I'd say I lean more towards mountains. Mountains, rivers, lakes, peaceful environments like that. Coastal photography for me is more of a treat. It's more of something that I'll do to give myself a break, give myself a treat, and give myself a little something different. To a very large degree, yeah. The more you do landscape photography, the more, when you go through a landscape environment or something that you would normally photograph, you start seeing it in the way your camera lens would. You see it as a normal person does, but you're picking out compositions all the time. You're kind of thinking about, oh, that'd make a good photograph, that'd be a good photograph. I don't think it changes the way you see the world. I think it makes you pay attention to the world more. Maybe it's different for somebody who starts later in life, but I did start photography quite early. I was 8 years old when I first started using a camera. 10 when I'd say I was really into it, because that's when I got my first camera of my own. Yeah. It changes the nature of the way you look at the world and the attention you pay to it. It doesn't change the way you see the world, just how you see it. It's how you pay attention to it. Now that's a debate. It's a hell of a topic. It's also a damn good question. I think social media is a tool just like any other medium, like a website or YouTube channel or anything like that. I think it has the potential to do a lot of good. It also has the potential to do a lot of bad. Social media itself is not hurting photography in any way. The people on social media, they can be. Negative criticism, people who think their photography is better than yours or things like that. Anybody who wants to put your photography down or your work down. So yeah, it's the same thing is bad for photography on social media as it is in real life. It's people. Now AI, that's bad for photography because people are creating more AI images, and those AI images are absolutely shit. And that is ruining photography because it's making real photos that look like they're AI. It's making them look fake, and it's ruining the reputation of the photographer that takes them. So yeah, AI more than social media is the problem. This is a question I've been asked a lot. The truth of the matter is, I don't actually know. I continue to improve with my photography every time I do it. Everybody does. I'm going to continue to do the trips that I do. I'm going to continue to go to the places I go to. I have got a lot of places planned this year that are going to massively improve my photography. The next biggest thing that's happened to me, or the most recent biggest thing that's happened to me, is getting out in the car and car camping. It's massively improved the quality of the images that I can get because I'm getting sunrise and sunset more. I'm getting to locations before people more, and I feel that's probably going to be a continued evolution. I think that's where the what's next for me kind of lies at the moment, is continuing that trend and maybe building on it, potentially with a van, assuming the current fuel crisis debate. But yeah, longer term than that, does that mean do I do this full time or something like that? I really don't know. This channel would have to grow massively for me to do it full time. It'd have to be earning me a proper income to actually be something that I consider doing as a full-time venture. I think at the moment I'm happy plugging away as I am, and I'm letting the future kind of deal with itself, because other things need to come into place before I can actually decide where I take my goals next. At the point of making this Q&A, which is April 2026, as I mentioned in the previous question, I'm going to continue to evolve the whole van or car camping situation. That's a project in itself. Photography projects, nothing specific, but I do have some key locations that I'll be visiting this year. I have got a trip to the Isle of Skye coming up. A lot of camping on Loch Marie. I've got that coming up this year. I've got doing the kayaking across the West Island Way. I'm probably not going to kayak the whole way, but I'm going to find key locations that I want to go to and kayak to those, camp at those, and get the photos at those. That West Island Way trip is going to be a project in itself, because there's going to be a few other locations attached. I've got a few trips planned this year. I've literally planned something for every single month of this year to get out, use the car as a camping tool, and do the car camping trips. Despite what happened in the Pendle Hill video, I am still going to do those, because I do really enjoy it. I enjoy being on location. But yeah, there's nothing beyond that. There's nothing really major. But having said that, that pretty much encompasses this entire year, and how I build on that from there will depend on how this year proves to be successful. So there you go. Hopefully you've enjoyed this Q&A. Now, I haven't actually put it out there for any questions, because these are questions that have been asked either at job interviews, or off work colleagues, or off friends, family, off you guys, off Instagram, off Facebook. These are questions that have come from all over the place. Some of the questions have been asked in different ways, but have been asked several times, if you know what I mean. However, I would very much appreciate you to comment down below if there are any questions you'd like to ask, and if there's anything you'd like to see in another Q&A. That would be very much appreciated if you'd put those in the comments down below. Or I do pay attention to the comments on all my videos, so any questions that come up on those I will keep for another one of these. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. And more importantly, if you're a new photographer, take my advice, get out there and get shooting. In the meantime, this video has come to an end, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.